Ever since SteamOS 3.5, I've been wondering something. You see, Valve has spent almost the entire 2023 bringing a huge update with SteamOS 3.5, and it turned out that their biggest features with that tremendous update were aimed at their surprise new refresh, the Steam Deck OLED. And I don't know about you, but what that has left me wondering is what new features Valve will bring to Steam Deck in 2024, and thanks to some data miners, we do have at least one huge answer, and it's exactly what I've been waiting for. The funny thing about a lot of Valve's updates is that even if you look just at SteamOS 3.5, Valve has a habit of looking to what community updates are getting the most traction and adopting them officially. They've done this, of course, with Vibrant Deck. Vibrant Deck was the Decky Loader plugin that unofficially provided a saturation slider so that you could make the picture on the Steam Deck, well, more vibrant. Valve ended up taking this feature and implementing it themselves, and even providing an additional slider for color temperature so that you had even more control over customizing the picture on your screen. The fact that this amount of control is not only available but easy to configure seems unprecedented in this space, but definitely let me know if I'm missing anything in the comments. Likewise, the evolution of startup movies was fun to see because at first the community discovered a way to do this unofficially, and then Valve updated SteamOS to make it much easier by just dropping a movie file into a specific folder. And then finally, Valve incorporated it into menus and even allowed you to buy startup movies from the Steam Point store. And there are more stories just like this, plenty of times that Valve has borrowed from the community to make their own product better, and now it appears that maybe Valve is doing it once again, maybe borrowing ideas from the community for their very next Steam Deck feature. This news comes courtesy of Pavel Jundik, aka the X-Paul. Pavel is the proprietor of SteamDB.info and as such a premier data miner for Steam. Pavel discovered that Valve is working on, as he quoted, game recording clips. He goes on to say there's not enough details to figure out how it will work, probably recording and sharing clips from the Steam client, end quote. To be clear, he does specify the Steam client, so this is a feature that would certainly not be locked to the Steam Deck if it does come, and you might even argue that it won't come to the Steam Deck at all. But I certainly think it will come to the Steam Deck, and I also happen to believe that the development of this feature was motivated by the desire to make it easy to record your own clips on Valve's handheld specifically. There are 1,000,001 ways to record game clips on PC, but to do so from within gaming mode on the deck requires at the very least a Decky Loader plugin called Decky Recorder. Decky Recorder is great when it works, and it does in fact work quite well, so it proves that it is possible to create a feature like this despite the fact that demanding PC games may already be pushing the deck to its limit. The problem is that there are many people out there that don't want to install plugins at all. Even for someone like me, Decky Loader plugins are fun to try, and I have to try them to let you know what's out there, but I generally prefer sticking to the vanilla SteamOS. One of the reasons I prefer that is that as SteamOS gets updated, plugins will inevitably break. Many times those plugins will get updates before the new SteamOS makes it to the stable channel, but still it's a bit of a roulette, and I just find it simpler to once again stick to a more vanilla experience. This is why I've sort of campaigned so hard for Valve to develop their own gameplay recording feature. At this point, it may be the last feature that I feel is missing from the Steam Deck. Even the Switch allows you to record gameplay clips, and I'd love to see the Steam Deck have this as well. One thing that some people may not consider is that there is a lot that would go into developing a feature like this. As of right now, even just taking, viewing, and sharing screenshots is actually one of Steam's most underdeveloped features. It functions pretty terribly if you have a large collection of screenshots, and even if you don't, I don't think it's as intuitive to use as it is on consoles, and you're pretty limited when it comes to sharing. That's not to mention the fact that the storage space involved for saving screenshots is orders of magnitude lower than the space involved for storing videos, not to mention the compute time needed to compress and format videos and the bandwidth needed to view and access. So as of right now, I think this feature is a long ways away, but I'm pretty excited to see it come to Steam and the Steam Deck, and I'm really happy to hear that it is something Valve is working on. By the way, around the time that we got this news, Valve also announced a new update that allows you to set your games in your library as private so that other people won't know that you own them. One snafu, however, is that Valve launched this feature but forgot to hide privated games over Steam Family Share. Imagine my embarrassment when I had to explain to my son that I really do own the 2009 release of Bionic Commando. Just kidding, that game is amazing. Speaking of privacy, we also got word from Sadly It's Bradley that Valve continues to make progress with SteamVR on Linux. Apparently, a contractor for Valve shared a screenshot of Steam connecting to a wireless headset using SteamVR 2.3 on Linux. That's great news, and I do hope that Steam Deck 2 or perhaps a Steam Deck console takes advantage of something like this. Finally, for Steam updates, it appears that Valve is dropping support for Windows 7, Windows 8, and Windows 8.1. I can hear the Penguin Gang rejoicing with the news that Valve is dropping support for older versions of Windows, just as they're expanding support for Linux. Come claim your W, you tuxedo kings. I'm sure Gabe and the Valve folks couldn't wait to end support for Windows 8. You know, the version of Windows that eventually made the Steam Deck possible. Windows 8 introduced the Microsoft Store, and at the time it looked like Microsoft would have liked nothing better than to have their store be the only way to download and install apps on their operating system. This set Valve on the path of Steam machines and eventually Proton and then the Steam Deck. Thankfully, Microsoft seemed to have changed course ever since Steve Ballmer was succeeded by Satya Nadella, but having Windows 8 in the rear view is reason enough for everyone to celebrate. Rip in peace, Windows 8. One thing that was not as good of a look for Valve was the Steam Awards. After seeing the big snubs at the Game Awards, there were many people that advocated for a more democratic process to who receives these prestigious recognitions. The masses wielded their power in predictably unpredictable fashion. On the one hand, they provided sincere votes for Lethal Company to win the Better with Friends category and Hogwarts Legacy to win the Best Game on Steam Deck award. On the other hand, they ironically voted for Starfield for Most Innovative Gameplay, while Red Dead Redemption was awarded the Labor of Love award. The unpredictable nature of these votes left some confusion on other votes. Did Last of Us Part 1 win Best Soundtrack ironically or sincerely? It's a good soundtrack, but it's a remaster, and Hi-Fi Rush seemed like a shoo-in here. Still though, while this does seem like just fun and games, it does represent some weird problems. For one, Valve is forced to present the ironic awards unironically. It would be a bad look for Valve if the caption to the Labor of Love award said Red Dead Redemption 2's ongoing support is so bad that players thought it would be better to snub Deep Rock Galactic and Apex Legends so that they could troll Rockstar. Yeah, instead of that, Valve had to say this, quote, "The team is well past the debut of their creative baby, but being the good parents they are, these devs continue to nurture and support their creation. This game, to this day, is still getting new content after all these years," end quote. No, it's not. Likewise, developers are choosing to receive these awards unironically. Starfield tweeted that they were thrilled to announce that Starfield has won the Most Innovative Gameplay award in the Steam Awards. You know, the game whose strongest criticisms from its lovers and haters alike has been the fact that it has outdated gameplay. Again, I do feel bad for the snubbed finalists. Your Only Move is Hustle is a truly innovative game that turns a 2D fighter into a turn-based strategy game. It's really weird and not for everyone, but it certainly has an argument for the most innovative gameplay of the year. I don't have a solution. I think that this is one way for gamers to make their opinions be known, and they were very effective at it. I think that both curated awards and democratic awards have their place, and if nothing else, I still learned about new games like Inward, Shadows of Doubt, and Sunken Land, so all's well that ends well. Now, on the subject of making some gamers angry, the Boomer Shooter tag is now official on Steam. The term Boomer Shooter is meant to describe a retro-style first-person shooter that has more in common with Doom than with Call of Duty. Some people have taken some sort of offense to this name, even though it appears to be used with love and affection for the genre and the players of the genre. Personally, I'm a big fan of the name, and so are the good folks over at New Blood, publishers of Dusk, Ultrakill, and Amid Evil, a trio of games that helped catapult the modern retro shooter movement. Here's a tweet from Andrew Holsholt, the composer of Dusk's soundtrack, celebrating the moment. He says, quote, "The term boomer shooter was a lovingly cheeky term we saw used once when developing Dusk as a description for Doom, so we ran with it because it was funny. It would go on to be associated with an entire genre of shooters. Today, it's a category on Steam. I love this reality," end quote. So do I, Andrew. So do I. On that note, Graven is a boomer shooter leaving early access later this month. It's a game that has been in early access for a long time, and with the layoffs at Embracer recently, I was worried that it would never be fully released. Thankfully, it appears that the Graven folks were not affected and the game should still be released later this month. Some friends also pointed me to a trailer for a game called Mouse that looks to utilize the Steamboat Willie Mickey Mouse design that recently went public domain in an awesome looking black and white boomer shooter. I cannot wait to play this one myself. But yeah, let me know if you're a fan of the genre name in the comments, but when you do, I'd also like to hear a little more context. Are you someone that plays boomer shooters? Are you a millennial, Gen X, anything else? Let me know how you are feeling about this. On the subject of retro gaming, the PC and therefore the Steam Deck got another huge port. This time it's Perfect Dark, which utilizes a decompilation project that was completed last year. And while this port does remain a work in progress, it is already mostly functional with incredible new features like mouse look, dual analog controller support, widescreen resolution, configurable field of view, 60 FPS support, and some basic mod support. Perhaps even better is that they are currently working on netplay for this game and already even have hosted a live stream showing this feature off. Best of all, this project ships with absolutely no Perfect Dark assets whatsoever, which means that Microsoft or Nintendo or anyone else can't just have this taken down. You'll need a Perfect Dark ROM, which will be used to extract the assets. The NTSC 1.1 version is the one that's recommended, but naturally I'll leave a link in the description where you can find more information and a video from my friend High Tech Lowlife. A GoldenEye port is unfortunately not as far along, but I'm not gonna lie, I'm pretty excited to play Perfect Dark on a Steam Deck using gyro and flickstick. Are you gonna check this out? Let me know in the comments. Next up is the new handheld being teased by MSI, then leaked and likely to be officially announced at the yearly tech convention CES later this week, perhaps even as soon as tomorrow. I already have a video discussing this at length, so I won't talk about it too much here. The quick points are that the render of the device looks a lot like a Black Edition ROG Ally, and it appears to be running one of Intel's brand new Meteor Lake APUs, with at least one model having 32 gigabytes of RAM. Interestingly, this APU does have ray tracing capabilities, but unfortunately we don't have too much info altogether. I am personally worried about the battery life on a handheld that is running an Intel APU, so I'll be curious to see how it performs in that regard. That said, if you want to get the full scoop, watch my video. I'll leave a link to that in the description. Just as the MSI Claw is about to debut and Switch 2 rumors continue to heat up, we are also learning of a new flash card for the Nintendo Switch called the MIG Switch. More oddly, it appears that Gary Bowser may be involved with this. Gary Bowser is the man that was imprisoned for circumventing Nintendo's copyright protections on the Switch and the Switch Lite in the past. Even once freed from prison, he was ordered to pay over $14 million to Nintendo and will have his wages garnished until that amount is paid. I say all that to say it's discouraging that Gary seems to be returning to the scene of the crime even after seeing what Nintendo is legally capable of. In any case, this cart has already gone up for pre-order. Personally, I don't think I have much of a reason to pick one of these up myself. What do you think? Have you pre-ordered one? Do you plan to buy it? Should I buy one? Let me know. As a final story, I want to point out that Overkill.wtf is reporting that an actual 2TB card is now on the way from Kioxia. Kioxia is a solid brand, but I do expect the 2TB card to be pricey. That sort of price tag definitely increases the pain if one of these cards were to go bad. Still though, I can see this being attractive for someone that wants to have their large collection of games on their PC handhelds. Are you going to pick one of these up? Alright, this was a beefy Deck News Roundup for this week. I hope you all had a good holiday break and are enjoying a happy new year. Let me know what you think of today's topics, including recording game clips, Steam Awards, and the MSI Claw. There's a new humble choice. It's a good buy if you want Midnight Suns, but not such a good buy if you're not interested in that game. Be sure to check out my link in the pinned comment. I hope you're all having a wonderful week. Deck Gang out. Goodbye!